What's up, everybody? Welcome to the 3 and Out YouTube page. I'm John Middlekauff, and we are talking football all day, every day. Make sure you subscribe, like the video, share it with your friends. Let's roll, baby. Okay, very, very excited to have on the best athlete in the Gruden family, Jay Gruden. Jay, live from Virginia. How you doing?
I'm doing good, doing good. I don't know. My brother was a pretty good athlete there until right after high school, he stopped growing. I kept growing a little bit, got to be 6 foot, but he was a damn good baseball player and football player for sure.
I was looking at your Arena League bio. I'm born and raised in Davis, so right by Sacramento, and I saw you had a quick stint there in the early '90s before you became an Arena League legend and rattled off some MVPs and championships.
I gave it a shot with the Sacramento Surge. Did not work out, so I went and played arena balls. More fun.
What is Arena League? Was it just the time? Obviously, television has changed the game, but like you would think that would kind of work. If it worked in the '90s, it would have a place today. What do you think happened there?
I think we just missed our window. We were too early. It was a great league when I was in it. Players were getting paid a lot of money. Coaches were getting paid pretty good. It was very competitive. We're getting guys right out of the NFL. As soon as they get cut, we get them even before going to the CFL. I think we just got a little too big for our britches. The franchise tags went up to like 16, $17 million, and the owners could never recoup that because they were guaranteed TV money or the NFL was going to buy in as used as a developmental league, and neither one of those things happened. So the owners kind of lost their ass and they had to get rid of it.
When I worked with the Eagles, Matt Nagy had just got there and he had a good career. And I remember watching him spin the ball. I'm like, I don't know if he could move like an NFL player, but clearly in the Arena League, you guys had a lot of guys that could spin it. In 2024, with the internet, obviously Warner kind of made the transition, but do you think there would have been more? The scouting staffs are way bigger now. Would have been more guys make it? Because I would imagine, I mean, you see the XFL, the USFL. I mean, guys are getting shots left and right.
Yeah, I think some of the
90-man rosters, too.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. A lot of guys would have got more opportunities to play where they don't get that opportunity once they get cut in the NFL or trying to get on the XFL. But this is a great opportunity for skilled guys, especially wide receivers, defensive backs, to really show their skill. You got to be able to cover in that league. I mean, you got to change direction and do some things, and pass rushers as well. And then offensive linemen, some guys could develop as guards or tackles in the league as well. Just, giving guys, young guys, opportunities to play more is a benefit. That's why I hope the UFL works out, because there are going to be some guys that can emerge from that and be big time helps in the NFL.
How much time do you and your brother spend talking about quarterbacks?
Not as much anymore. We still do quite a bit from time to time, but he's got his own show now going on. But we love talking football. That's all we know. So when we get together, we're talking football plays, protection schemes, all that stuff, and then we'll maybe swing a golf club. But love the quarterback position and studied it.
How's the golf game?
It was going pretty good till today. I played terrible, but it's going good. I'm about a 5 handicap, 4.5, and
Oh,
I don't think I'll ever get below that because I'm not a good enough putter. I don't make any putts, but I can get around from tee to green pretty good. I don't get a lot of doubles, but make a lot of pars and bogeys and occasional birdie if I chip in.
you beat John?
Yeah, I beat him like a drum. He
You know,
just
it's funny.
he got a new hip, so I can really beat him now.
I was thinking, your brother really came on the scene, right, with that crew in Green Bay and Favre. And I remember talking to Marty Morningwig, and he thought Favre was the best player he ever saw during that stretch. And obviously, from a physical gift standpoint, you could argue, I mean, he was one of the greatest, if not the greatest, throwers of the football, his athleticism. But when I think about the quarterbacks you've had, and even your brother, right, success with Rich Gannon, and then he coached Derek Carr. You had Andy Dalton as the OC in Cincy, and then you had Kirk Cousins. You trade for Alex Smith. It's kind of like you go the opposite of Carr with the quarterbacks you like. Is that's just the timing where you were at the time, what was available, or did you specifically with Dalton, Cousins, and Alex, who was really good before he got injured?
Yeah.
Weren't you guys like 6-2 that year? I mean,
Yeah, we had 2-game lead in the division. Then he broke his leg, and then Colt McCoy broke his leg the next game after that. So we were down to Josh Johnson, and it was a rough stretch there for about a year.
So I guess the question is, do you lean you can deal with a little lesser arm quarterback if they're accurate, or is that just the cards you were dealt in those given situations?
Well, Cincinnati's really the only quarterback I picked. Me and not myself, but Marvin Lewis and I spent a lot of time in that draft. We had a second round draft pick, and Blaine Gabbert was in that draft. Obviously, Cam Young, Christian Ponder, Jake Locker was in that draft. So we had to sit there in the second round. We had to wait for Andy to fall. We were just hoping to goodness that he would fall. I thought Seattle was going to take him at 29, but they took James Carpenter, lineman. And the other choice was Ryan Mallett or Colin Kaepernick. And I really wasn't too involved in the zone reads and all that stuff at that time. So I really needed somebody to come in and start as a rookie because Christian, or what's his name? The quarterback said he wasn't coming back.
Carson Palmer.
Yeah, Carson Palmer said he was not coming back no matter what. So we had Jordan Palmer on the roster, and Dan Lefebvre was all we had on the roster. So we had to get a starter. So we had to wait till the second round, and Andy was perfect because he started 4 years at TCU. They had a lot of different variances in their system. He was under center. He was in a shotgun play action, quick game. He understood protections, and I knew that he could handle the offense at a faster rate than anybody else because it's also the strike shortened season. So we didn't have a training camp or an OTAs in the off season. We just had to come into training camp, put the offense in. He had to learn it and start from day one. So he was perfect for us. When I got to Washington, we obviously had Robert and Kirk. So they were my guys that we had to develop. My job was to develop Robert first. But as time went on, it was clear that Kirk was the better passer of the football and understood the game a little bit better and was more healthy. Robert, after he broke his leg, was never quite the same, probably. And then, obviously, when we lost Kirk, I found out on Twitter. My son found out on Twitter we traded for Alex Smith. I had no idea. My son comes running, "Hey, you guys just got Alex Smith." I go, "What? What do we give up for him?" I guess a third-round draft pick in Kendall Fuller. Kendall Fuller's our starting nickel. Yeah, I wasn't happy about that. But I loved Alex. I loved coaching Kirk, but really Andy's the only one I handpicked for myself. And that was really the only guy left for us to handpick.
Well, I think there's a lot there by the time, let's start with Cousins, who this probably come out on Thursday, but I just had the big comeback. Do you think he became a better player or was coming into his own? Was he a different guy once he had been in Minnesota a couple years and the guy we've seen probably the last 3+ years pre-Achilles than the guy that you experienced, or does he look the same to you?
I think he looks the same. He's obviously gained more confidence in everything that he does. He's a perfectionist when it comes to footwork and preparation, and he wants to know exactly why plays are in and the timing, anticipation, all that stuff. He's really good at that. I think when Kirk really turned the corner is when he gained confidence in himself. He was always second fiddle here. Everybody wanted Robert, 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 Robert. Nobody ever talked about Kirk. And then when the competition actually was going on, he still felt second fiddle because the fans really wanted Robert to succeed. And they were kind of against Kirk all the way. And then Kirk started playing good. Once I announced him as a full-time starter, he didn't have to look over his shoulder. I think that's when he really took a huge jump as far as his production and his fear of not throwing interceptions and all that stuff. He got rid of all that, just played the position and really took over. We went 9-7, went to the playoffs. He had a fabulous year and helped me get an extension. And then he went on his way and we went on our way.
On the Cousins situation on Monday night, they struggled in the red zone in their couple trips and he's new to the team, but that final drive, it's pretty clear in that situation when a team has probably a $140 plus, kicking it out of bounds, you get the ball at the 30, you're one pass away from being pretty close to midfield. And clearly, Vic Fangio, in my opinion, has been one of the better defensive coordinators, I don't know, for a long time, but it felt like they were pretty soft, and the safeties were way back and those holes were pretty easy for Kirk when they were not getting any pass rush. What did you see on that final drive that made it so easy for the Falcons? That was stealing candy from a baby.
They ran our NASCAR concept with a spin and the dagger behind it, and he hit the spin for a gain of 10. Then they come back to no huddle and they play too deep. Philadelphia in the corner jumps a flat route like a rookie would do, I guess. And they threw the dang bench route right over the top of for a gain about 25. And then they played really soft. The one thing I think, had it been me as defensive coordinator, I know they got a rookie corner out there, but the guy can't really move right now. You got to bring some kind of pressure. And they just brought a 4-man rush. They weren't even getting close to him. And Kirk Cousins probably would be the best 7-on-7 quarterback in the National Football League. His accuracy and anticipation, and he can set his feet and throw the ball. He is accurate as all get out. So you have to get him off his spot. If you don't get him off his spot and he can step into a throw and see it, there's nobody as accurate as Kirk. And he proved that last night.
Yeah, that was That was a big time drive for him early in the season with a new team. Going back to the Dalton situation, who's in the news this week, obviously he's going to start. But I think it's been talked a lot about with these rookie quarterbacks, the logic of redshirting them, which doesn't really happen anymore, right? And
No.
throwing them right into the fire. Dalton falls under that category, had played a ton, clearly a mature guy, kind of like a Dak Prescott or a Brock Purdy, not your normal rookie,
Yeah,
is it safe to say?
exactly.
But
Exactly.
but still, there is a big transition period. Did you get, like you said, you just didn't really have a choice? Is that an ideal situation? How do you attack that from a coaching standpoint? Because you see these, I mean, Caleb's really struggling, getting crushed. Bo Nix looks kind of over his head right now, and Jaden's just kind of running around.
Yeah, it's tough. Everybody's different. Every quarterback's different. And then you have to protect them with the scheme. And you look at some of these coaches calling these plays, they're throwing 9 bubble screens a game. I'm like, ah, dang, challenge the guy a little bit. But Andy was just a very bright guy. Another thing we had the good fortune of, we had a really good defense. And I didn't feel the pressure to score every time we had the ball or convert every third down. I'd ran a draw sometimes on 3rd and 8 or screen to the back or whatever it might be and punted and tried to get the ball back. So we had a really good defense. Our special teams was good. And Andy did not turn the ball over and kept us in games. We won 9 games his first year. He won 10 the second year and 11 our third year. Then I got the job at Washington. So every quarterback's different how they handle it. Andy was really well prepared on protections and knew where to go with the football. Not the most accurate guy all the time, but very smart and handled a lot of information and did a great job. Some of these quarterbacks, I don't know if they can handle it or not. There's so many different things nowadays. In college, they're clapping their hands, they're looking at the sidelines, they're not doing anything with protections. Now all of a sudden they're trying to mic point or not mic point. They don't know who's free, and it's just a long way to go, a long process for these guys to get comfortable if they want total knowledge of the position. Right now, I don't think any of them are. I think they're just snapping the ball, letting the center call everything, and then if a free rusher comes, he just throws it away or scrambles. So these guys have a long way to go. A lot of talent, but even some of the second-year guys are struggling. We just, saw Will Levis every game. He has a horrible interception or a fumble or something like that costs his team. So, yeah, these guys are struggling, but they just got to keep playing until they get it.
You bring up a pretty good point. Your Cincinnati teams were really talented. Good offensive line. You just drafted A.J. Green. Your defense was stacked. But Andy, I mean, hit the ground running. And you look at Bryce Young, unlike your roster back in Cincinnati or the Niners or what Dak took over, it's pretty terrible. But on individual plays, Bryce looks, I mean, let's face it, horrendous. So when you saw that decision, he couldn't be any worse really through the first 2 games, even independently of what's around him. Is that you worked for a place where the owner had a lot of opinions of getting involved. Clearly that's going on in Carolina. What was your first reaction when you saw that?
I think it had to be done. I think when you look at a quarterback, you look at his progress and what's he doing good? What can we build on? And I didn't see one thing when it comes to the quarterback position that you felt like you could build on with Bryce. I mean, his arm talent didn't look there. His decision-making didn't look very good. His escapability didn't look very good. His stature in the pocket, his knowledge of the game, throwing into coverage. There was just nothing that I saw him getting better at. That's the problem that I had with Bryce. You'd love to see him. Okay, he's getting rid of the ball quicker. He's anticipating some throws, but he's taking sacks. He's missing throws. He's throwing bubble screens in the dirt. There was just really no redeeming quality. I think they had to do it. I think the team, you have to do that as a coach. And very similar when I made the move to Kirk, the team sees the film. They're watching the film. And if you don't make a move, you're going to lose respect in the locker room from your players. And I think that's why Coach Canales had to make that move.
But what happens now? Does he just run the scout team? Do you treat it a little bit different than a normal
I
backup
think
quarterback?
You got to take it like a man and understand, hey, I didn't play very good. He's got to point the finger at himself first directly, and then get in the meeting room and continue to develop. If Andy gets hurt tomorrow or next weekend, he's back in the fire. So he's got to continue to prepare himself like a pro, understand that he's a young player still. And if you look around the league at some of these quarterbacks like Baker Mayfield, he's on his 4th team already. So there's still time for him to develop, and he just got to be patient in the process, believe in the process, but really make himself better and understand the game.
Touchdowns, TD, Huddy, take it into the house, in for 6. I like to call it a tug. Whatever you call touchdown, one thing's for sure. Touchdowns matter more at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. On the ground, in the air, special teams or defense, we do not care how you score them. We just want to bet touchdowns. And DraftKings Sportsbook is the #1 place to bet touchdowns. Ready to place your first NFL bet? Try betting on something simple like a player to score a touchdown. Go to DraftKings Sportsbook app and make your bet today. Ready to do a touchdown dance of your own? I know I do it all the time. New DraftKings customers bet $5 to get $250 in bonus bets instantly and get 1 month of NFL Plus Premium. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use the code JOHN. That's code JOHN for new customers to get $250 in bonus bets when you bet just $5 and get 1 month NFL Plus Premium. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. You talk about Colt when he was there with Alex and I think Cousins. And then I get asked this question a lot. And I think from just a pure evaluation standpoint, from a scouting standpoint, like talent is probably not the most important factor when you look at a backup quarterback. You know, your quarterback guy, OC, head coach, what do you look for in a backup quarterback beside like what he's going to cost relative to your salary? All things being equal, what's an ideal backup quarterback?
Well, you have to make sure he's ready to go and play if something happens. I know firsthand quarterbacks get hurt all the time. You look at last year, I think 19 of them got hurt, something crazy.
Crazy 66 guys played or something.
So that's number one. They got to play, but you also have to have somebody that's knowledgeable of the game because he's not going to get a lot of reps. He's not going to get, even in training camp. I want my starter to get most of the reps. I got to get him ready. And he's going to have to learn based on what he sees. And then when he comes into games, he has to be prepared. So you got to have a guy that you know is going to be prepared and understand your system, be supportive of the starter, help you with some ideas. Sometimes a lot of backup quarterbacks like Colt, those guys, they had good ideas for third down or red zone or play action passes, whatever it might be. Just be involved in the process of teaching and working with the starter. And then when your time's ready, you better be ready. And you got to count on that guy to be ready, despite hardly ever talking to him. Like, okay, you're always talking to the starter, but you're talking to him as well. And he's got to understand that and be ready. My first year at Cincinnati, Bruce Gradkowski was our backup. He was perfect. He was always ready to go, very smart. He got called in the first game against Cleveland, came in the second half, had a great audible to get us a first down, and then threw a touchdown pass to A.J. Green to win it. So, and always very supportive. Never, ever was there any controversy between a starter and a backup quarterback. Everybody knew their place, and that's important as well.
Would you say they'd have to be right there with like the kicker and the punter as the lowest maintenance guy in the building?
Yeah. But you want them to be a little bit more active in helping the receivers and young receivers and offensive linemen and all that stuff. They're like another coach on the field. You want that type of backup in your building that can really help out and see the game in the big picture and really help out and help the head coach. And hey, like I had Bruce and Colton, those guys were great. They helped out in lots of different areas, not just playing quarterback and worrying about themselves.
They really are a hybrid role, right? Coach player, because ideally they never take a snap.
Yeah, that's ideally, but they have a lot of knowledge. The quarterback's usually one of the smartest guys on the team, and they can help out. And as a coach, you got to, they'll help you with the pulse of the locker room as well. They're not snitches, but they will help you with the pulse of the locker. Hey, you're a little too rough on these guys today. You might want to take a day off or go a little lighter or whatever it might be. They have just a great idea of the pulse of the locker room, and they're a big help in a lot of different areas.
I got this question recently, and I thought it was pretty fascinating. As a head coach, whether you're calling the plays or not, we often see the guys write little notes throughout the game. What typically are you writing down during the course of the 60 minutes?
On the game plan, you're just writing down plays that you called or what happened or what coverages you might have seen, maybe percentage of coverages you're seeing on third down. You have different categories on 3rd and 2 to 5. Okay, we got man on this one. We got man on this one. So, they might play their cover 3 on the next one or whatever. Just little notes to yourself, or you're making notes on play. Like if you got a star player, you haven't got him a ball yet, you got to try to find the plays that are best suited to get him that ball. And there are a lot of different things you can write on. Sometimes write down a referee's name. That guy just gave you a bad call. That guy's name is Bill. I'm going to get after Bill on his next drive. A lot of things you could write down on there.
Are you ever writing down like so-and-so looks terrible, we got to make mention of this, he's out of shape, or this coverage is a bad
camp? I'll do that. I used to take my phone out there sometimes and make notes on my phone. People think I was on the phone, but I would make notes on that play 2 and walk through. We got to go over that protection scheme, or we got to make sure we find a third corner because our third corners aren't very good on special teams and they can't run and things like that. Yeah. Oh yeah. You make those notes all the time as a head coach.
So you would say the notes during a game are very specific to that game in terms of coverages, play calls, what's working, what's not, individual players we need to
Yeah.
feature on this play, stuff like that.
Or ideas for the next series too. Like if you're getting ready to punt, and then the next series you might have a thought, oh my gosh, I got to get to this play action. You might circle it or make a note of what play action pass you want to get to early, what runs you want to get to, what personnel groups you want to. I mean, the game plan is usually pretty thick, and a lot of different personnel groupings and plays and personnel groupings, play action, quick game, empty, motions, all that stuff. Then you have your specific third down, red zone, short yardage, all those. And there's some plays that really work for you in practice that really look good in practice that you know your quarterbacks feel good about. You got to make sure you get those off the script at some point because you don't want to take them with you when the game's over.
Would you consider yourself a West Coast offense guy?
Yeah, probably. I learned everything from my brother. I worked for him for 7 years in Tampa. And then I went to the UFL and I kind of added my own stuff. And then I got the offensive coordinator job at Cincinnati. And mainly it was a lot of the Tampa stuff. I called it the Bible for football, 2008 Buccaneer playbook. I use a lot. You had good man beaters, quarters beaters in there, a lot of different information in there that I really liked. And I use a lot of the terminology is very similar. And then when I got the job at Washington, I kept Sean McVay on because he worked with Shanahan's, and I wanted to try to implement some of their runs and play actions with what we did. So we kind of changed the terminology a little bit to suit the quarterbacks, Kirk and Robert, so they'd have to learn everything brand new. So we kind of kept the running game very similar, the play actions very similar, and then the pass concepts that I liked from the West Coast we kept over from Washington, from Cincinnati and Tampa.
Well, I wrote down because I wanted to ask you. Obviously, Kyle's father and now Kyle and the Kubiaks, who might as well be Shanahan's as well. Clint's crushing it with the Saints. How would you describe the Shanahan offense?
I think it's all predicated on the outside zone is what really they made famous. And then the play actions off of it. Really, I think their passing game is pretty much nothing really special. Their protection schemes are a little shake. When they get down or they have a lot of third downs, they're not quite as effective as something teams like an Andy Reid type guy. But first and second down, these guys will kill you. If they're having success on first and second down, they have a litany of play action passes and boots and leaking the tight ends out around the backfield and the runs they get going. They're very schooled in how they want their run blocking to be. They have different variances off the outside zones with the sifting and very creative ways to get to the same spot, which is what I liked about how they ran it. I actually think Kyle's best season as a play caller when he had Robert Griffin as a rookie. I mean, he put in some plays nobody's ever saw. The zone reads with the sifting tight end, and then they're bluffing that guy, and then he's keeping it with the lead blocker, and then they're pulling it out, throwing a glance route right behind to Pierre Garcon, and and then finally the league caught up with it. They were starting to fall back a little bit on some of these sift blocking, but that first came in, he was giving defenses nightmares, and so yeah, he's definitely a great play caller. First, second down, probably one of the best.
Well, you mentioned when they get down, they get in trouble. Well, you're not always going to be. You see the Saints right now are just curb stomping people, and they just keep running the ball down your throat. Kyle, for a lot of his careers, had good teams, and they do that. But when they find themselves down, they did against the Vikings, it gets weird. So how do you overcome? You can't just change your whole offense, but how do you get better in just we're going to throw the ball on second and third down no matter what here because we're down a couple scores? Like, how do you practice that? Because it seems it's been a bugaboo for Kyle, I would say. He had that run where if he was down 7 points in the fourth quarter, they were like 0-38 or something.
Yeah,
Yet he's going to all these NFC Championship games. So how do you balance to become more complete like Andy?
I don't know. I'm just not a big fan of his true pass concepts when he's down, and I'm just not a big fan of them. I don't know. I just don't understand a lot of them. And that's just something you have to continue to work on through OTAs, training camp, and all that stuff. You got to prepare to be down. It's a lot easier to call plays when you're ahead by 14 points on first and second down than when you're down 14. Not many coaches have had a lot of success calling plays down, having to come back. It's very difficult when you're a one-dimensional team. It's very difficult in the NFL to have success. I'm not saying that I did have a lot of success. I'm just saying from a pass game standpoint, when I study teams, that would be one of the last teams I would look at as far as pass concepts go on known passing situations. I'd go elsewhere and look for other pass concepts.
Is the West Coast offense better in that situation because their passing game so predicated on the quick game, 3-step drops, getting rid of the ball quickly?
I think so. I mean, Kyle, they still have the quick game too, but I just like the down the field passes. The Sean Payton pass game when he was at New Orleans. really, and my brother when he was at Oakland and obviously Tampa Bay, those were the past games that I really liked. I really studied when John was out of football, Sean Payton and Drew Brees, and obviously Tom Brady. They were kind of different. Bill O'Brien and all those coordinators that he had there. They were a little bit different, but they still spread the field pretty good and made it a little bit easier for the quarterback. And it just made more sense to me on the eye where people were and why they were getting there and who they were reading. Sometimes I just feel like Kyle guys are just running all over the place with no rhyme or reason. But those are the teams. When Drew Brees was in his heyday, it was Sean, and they had, they worked the backs, they worked the weak side linebackers, and they worked the crossing routes extremely well. That was one of the best offenses, I think.
What are your thoughts on Brock Purdy?
Oh, he's great. I think nobody expected him to do what he did, and I know he gets a lot of not, I don't know, not, he doesn't get enough credit for the success that he's had. Everybody gives, oh, Kyle Shanahan is a great play caller. Somebody's got to execute this offense. And sure, he's had some clean pockets and some really good looks, and you got to credit Kyle for some of those, but still he's delivering the football and he's taken some hits and done a pretty good job of getting their team in position to win. Do I think he's one of the top quarterbacks in the league? I don't think he's one of the top quarterbacks in the league, but you got to give him a lot of credit. I think he's pretty damn good.
Yeah, I want to get you out of here asking about two guys. Looking back, obviously you had known McVay because he had worked for your brother, and had coached, like you said, with Kyle and Mike, so he had kind of learned a different scheme. But was it a pretty bold move at the time when you made him your offensive coordinator? Even though I think at the time you were going to call plays, right,
Yeah.
as the head
Yeah.
coach,
Mm-hmm.
but still, like he had been the tight end coach. He had to be what 27, 28 years old.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, that has aged well, but at the time, were there some people looking at you a little funny?
I'm telling you, I think it costs a lot of older guys like myself opportunities to coach again because now everybody's going young. If I don't
Yeah.
make, if I don't make him coordinator, he doesn't get that head job. I don't think LaFleur's where he is, and the cat at Miami and Zach Taylor. I mean, everybody went young, but yeah, I got ridiculed a lot for that. But Sean was perfect for me because I knew the players respected him and he knew what he was doing, and he has a photograph. He remembers things that I don't remember at Cincinnati. Hey, remember you called this play against the Giants on 3rd and 8? I go, what are you talking about? He remembered that. So it was perfect for me to implement Sean as offensive coordinator to have a marriage between our two systems. And it worked out pretty good. We're pretty good on offense there for a couple of years. We had Jordan Reed and Chris Thompson out of the backfield, and obviously Pierre and Deshaun and Jameson Crowder. We were pretty exciting at one time, and gotta give a lot of credit to him.
And you were letting him call plays by the end, weren't you, at different
I
times?
was because I was calling plays because I like to call plays off the cuff. I don't like to look at the script and call plays, but like a robot. I kind of call plays as soon as the play's over. I know what I'm calling. I call it. And I sometimes would call a play in the running game, like we would call our I runs in the 90 series at Tampa, and there were teen series here. So sometimes I would say 93 week or whatever. No, it's 13. And he'd be yelling in my ear. And I'd be, God damn it, you just call the plays. And we would communicate and put together a game plan together. So I let him talk to the quarterback because he was with the quarterbacks a lot more than I was, which I really regret looking back. I didn't spend as much time with the quarterback meetings as I should have being a play caller because there were so many other things to do. But it just made more sense to let him talk to the quarterback. And if I wanted to play, I would tell him what to run or whatever.
When he was interviewed for the job, obviously, your family thinks really highly of him. You were working with him and knew how smart he is. But the transition for a guy 31, 32, me and him are about the same age. I remember thinking, like, this is not going to work. I worked for Andy Reid, just knowing how hard it is for a young guy. And let's face it, it probably couldn't have gone much better over the course of his career. Were
Yeah.
you shocked? I mean, did you think it was like, you got to take the money, but man, this is going to be tough?
Yeah, it's always tough. He walked into a great situation though. They had a number one pick in Jared Goff at quarterback, and they were able to get Aaron Donald, and they had some good players. I think they had Ramsey at corner, so he had a lot. He had some pretty good players, and
Gurley.
Gurley, yeah, he had some pretty good players. And some coaches aren't that fortunate. You look at Canals walking into Carolina. I mean, they got a lot of work to do. They need about 25 first-round draft picks next year to turn that thing around. And some teams are built a little bit better than others when you get the job. And you got to really be careful. A lot of these coaches to become head. I think Ben Johnson might have done the right thing, just waiting a year and just seeing how these teams develop and what team he might want to go to if he gets the opportunity. The flip side is if you wait for the next job, you may not get one if your team doesn't perform well. So you got to strike while the iron's hot if you want to become a head job. But Sean's a smart guy, and I know he handles people extremely well, and that's important. He's a great communicator to all kinds of different people and a good motivator. So he was an easy pick for to become head coach.
What about Kevin O'Connell? He damn sure looks the part, right? If you're going to cast a head coach or a former quarterback in a movie, it'd probably be him. But
Yeah,
he's clearly damn good. And,
Kevin's
he
good.
was your quarterback coach and your offensive coordinator.
Yeah, Kevin's perfect, and I hired him at Washington because he had a different background. He played for New England, so he had that New England system. He worked with Chip Kelly, so he had a little bit of that offense in him. I don't, I didn't like to just hire guys that knew our stuff. I wanted to hire guys that had knowledge of different systems, and it was really good. He was really good addition to us, and obviously he took off. He's very similar to Sean, a little bit different than Sean's, a little bit more upbeat, a little bit on the edge of a seat guy, a little more energy. Kevin's a little bit more laid back, but very bright, articulate, and really good communicator as well. Sometimes he talks a little too much. Come on, get it out, but he's a great coach and understands the game well.
You got the itch to get back on the sideline?
I don't really, I miss game day, watch these guys on game day, but I know what it takes going into the game. And physically, my knee, I just standing up at practice for 2-3 hours and those walkthroughs and drawing the cards up and those long days. I can remember counting down the Wednesdays. Okay, we have 16 Wednesdays left. That's a grind. And I miss the off seasons. I miss the scouting part of it. I really loved studying film on college guys and the draft and free agency and all that stuff, trying to build your team. I didn't get any say in it, but it was fun to study and make sure if they ever asked me who I wanted, I was ready and I had the guy ready to go. Had some say in some guys, but not as much as I would like to. And that's my favorite part of the game is picking the players.
What about working in Washington for Dan Snyder? Would you say that aged you a little bit, or was that one of those that I'm glad I got to experience it?
Yeah, the first couple of years were rough, because of the RG3 thing. But finally they gave in and understood and realized that Kirk was a better player. So I got a hell of a lot of heat for that. In fact, I think I probably would get fired after my first year. The second year, I think they hired Scott McLuhan to fire me, but fortunately, we came back and beat the Buccaneers and went on a playoff tear. We won like 8 games in a row, went to the playoffs that year, so I actually made it another year and then got an extension. But for the most part, it was okay working for him. He stayed out of it, but some of the major decisions were, he'd kind of go to Bruce and then they'd come back to me. Free agency and the way we picked players, I didn't really agree with. We had a staff of players or coaches. We had a staff of scouts, and we did a lot of work and a lot of homework. I just didn't like the fact that he would make the pick, even though he's the owner. I understand that, but if he was in the meetings like Mike Brown was at Cincinnati and listen to scouts and listen to coaches talk and evaluate, then I would understand it. But I didn't understand it the way he did it.
Well, Jay, I appreciate you taking all the time and go have fun on the putting green, work on that putting stroke, and you'll be breaking 75 before
Now I'm back to the claw. I went to cross-handed. I'm regular. I'm now on the claw. I don't know what I'm doing. It's
Yeah,
ridiculous.
anytime you're on the claw, I know you got a lot of things going through your head on the putting stroke.
Right about that.
Okay, Jay, thanks, man. Have a good one.
Thank you.